Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the RFGeneration Community Playthrough Wrap-Up for October 2014. My name is Shawn, but you know me better as Grey Ghost 81. We have a wonderfully spooky show in store for you, so stay tuned for some exciting discussion concerning 2 creepy classics. On the modern side, I will be joined by Floyd and returning special guest Dsiposed Hero to discuss Remedy Entertainment's cult classic Alan Wake, which is available on Xbox 360 and Windows. Over on the retro side, Rich, Jamie, and I will explore another haunting cult classic which many consider to be one of the finest games on the Sony PlayStation, and that is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. As always, you can listen to the show on Podomatic, iTunes, and YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And hey, while you're at it, why not come over to rfgeneration.com to join our playthroughs and discuss all the wonderful games we play. Thank you as always for listening, and now, on with the show.
Alright, so for the retro playthrough in October, we played the very popular title, somewhat of a cult classic, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It was originally released on the PlayStation in Japan in March of 1997, and in the US in October of the same year. It was developed by Konami, and it was also released on the Sega Saturn in 1998. In Japan only, of course, which is kind of sad. I wish we would have had that version. But in the Sega Saturn version, you can play as Maria, as well as Richter. Of course, you can play as Richter in the PlayStation version as well, but I think you have to go through the game first. Is that correct, guys?
Yep.
I didn't get a chance to try that, so I'm not sure, but that sounds
Yeah,
about
you
right.
gotta beat the game and then put your name in as Richter in a new save.
Right. So, Castlevania, just a little bit of a history on it. It was Symphony of the Night was the follow-up to Rondo of Blood, which, unfortunately, as we know, was not released in the U.S. It's actually a pretty fun game. I actually got a chance to play it a few weeks ago. My buddy Cameron brought over his Turbo Duo, and got to play some of it, so it's a really cool game. But you can also, I think you can play Rondo. It's Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles, is that correct? On PSP?
Yeah, on the PS. And didn't we get that gimped SNES version? Isn't that what Dracula X is?
It is.
Okay.
There are a few levels missing with Rondo. From what I understand, you can. It's sort of like if you think of it as like Castlevania 3, where you can go like different routes.
Okay.
To pick up different characters and stuff like that. Well, with Rondo, there's 4 or 5 different routes, and with the Dracula X, kind of the GIMP version we got, it didn't have that, and I think it was missing some other features too, which for fear of being wrong, I will not comment on right now.
Yeah.
But Symphony of the Night, just a little brief description. It's an action RPG. And the cool thing about this is it sort of completely changed the Castlevania series. Kind of gave it a kind of a more free-flowing feel. I know that Simon's Quest had a bit of a exploring the map type of feature, but this one's just kind of free-flowing. It's not kind of a level-per-level progression like the old Castlevania games were. More kind of open design is what they kind of call it, and for that reason, yeah, Metroidvania is sort of the name, the beloved name given to it. And I guess just a little other history. Oddly enough, Bill's going to appreciate this, but this game was originally intended for the 32X. Can you imagine that?
No way. I didn't even know that. That's horrible.
Why would they do this?
I could tell you something now. If this game were on the 32X, there would be a lot more people owning 32Xs.
Yeah.
Maybe.
For the setting of Symphony of the Night, basically Rondo of Blood, Richter goes and fights Dracula, and then destroys Dracula, who has been in Rondo. He's sort of brought from the grave, and Richter has to go destroy him. And this story for Symphony of the Night continues basically 4 years after Rondo of Blood, and just I guess basic premise of the story. We could kind of talk about what's going on, from the beginning. If you guys want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So, having not played any other Castlevania games, you were saying this one comes after Rondo of Blood, and so that little introduction sequence with the Dracula fight there, is that taken from the end of Rondo of Blood?
Yes, it's supposed to be taken from the end of Rondo of Blood, but in all actuality, it's almost the same fight that you get at the end of the first Castlevania game, the original. That's the ending as well. You fight Dracula, who opens up the cape. You jump over the fireballs, hit him in the head with the whip, and then he turns into the that monster that sort of half bat, half man Goliath that kind of jumps around. I think both games sort of have a similar ending, from what I understand.
Real references to the old series.
Yeah, and that's something that that I've got marked down for us to talk about a little bit later. There's this game is just chock full of Castlevania history, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I was going to say, more than a callback, it's kind of like honoring the traditions of, what is part of all the games.
Right.
Like that Dracula. It's almost like the tree boss in the Kirby games. In every Kirby game, the first level boss is that tree that, spits at you. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and you see that a lot through the Castlevania series. Similar enemies, similar boss battles that kind of pop up here and there over and over again. And it's always good to see new things, but also, it's sort of refreshing to, that they keep that sort of history alive and keep it going.
It's cool to see like the axe knight in every single game and all the different versions of him,
Yeah, and it's comforting too, right?
Right.
And it's just something that makes you sort of feel at home every time you're playing the game, which is always nice. So in Castlevania Symphony of the Night, you play as Alucard, who is half vampire, half human, son of Dracula. And you get a lot of backstory in this game, which is really nice. Alucard pops up for the first time in Castlevania 3 as a playable character that you can find if you take a certain path. That's where he kind of first started out, and then he becomes the main character in this game, which I thought was pretty cool. I mean, you're kind of stepping away from Castlevania tradition here, and to me, that's a big thing.
Because usually you're playing as one of the Belmonts, right?
Right. Of course, in Castlevania 3, you could play as other characters that you would find along the way, but this one was pretty much the first game that sort of centrally focused on another character. You're kind of going away from the traditional vampire hunter with the whip, and you're actually controlling a half human, half vampire character, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and in terms of the story and like his motivations, I don't know about you guys, but just not really knowing the game that well, I was a little confused why he was against his father until the very end, where you kind of hear his explanation from the last words of his mother. But up to that point, it didn't seem very clear to me why he was against his father, unless he just happened to have a random good streak that his father didn't have.
Yeah, because he's obviously older than a teenager, so he doesn't really have any reason to, hate his father. But we kind of get that somewhat before the midpoint of the game with the succubus battle, and we can talk about that now if you guys want to. That's fine.
That was the nightmare sequence?
Yes.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I like that.
That was a good cutscene, definitely.
And it was cool how the save point was like a different color. It was sort of like a foreshadowing, forewarning, maybe I don't want to go here right now.
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely said, all right, let me find the nearest real save room before I do whatever this thing is.
I was worried, I think, that there was going to be some trick that you try to use it and it just poisons you or something because it's all purple.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So the story continues, and before you fight the succubus, you go into like a nightmare sequence where the succubus has transformed into your mother, and is basically lying to you. Basically, she and you kind of find out in the end she was human, and she was kind of burned at the stakes, and for her, I guess, for her relationship with Dracula, Alucard's father. And she had told Alucard, please don't hate humans for this. This is, this is sort of just a one incident type of thing, and don't go through life hating humans. And but of course, we get that compassionate character of Dracula who has lost a wife, and that's a sort of a side of Dracula we don't see a whole lot of in the Castlevania series. So I thought that was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, and just back up real quick, and the cool thing about the succubus nightmare scene is that as when the succubus is posing as Alucard's mother, she says, kill everybody. Humans are the scum of the earth, and you have to take them out, kind of thing. So that was pretty funny. And then actually, you get this boss battle, which is halfway decent, not too tough, and it was cool with a cool little cutscene.
Yeah. I think some of the boss battles, and I know we'll kind of tackle a little bit of that later, but I think some of the boss battles, just while we touched on it, are they're a little. Some of them are a lot easier than others, and I think they're just sort of there to be sort of checking in, and battling bosses. It's almost like some of them are sort of mini boss battles in a sense, as opposed to
yeah, definitely
tougher battles. But
especially when some of them have characters that you end up fighting as just random mobs later on.
Yeah. So throughout the game, we run into a few other characters. We run into Richter, who is, of course, the hero of Rondo of Blood, and Maria, who also shows up in Rondo of Blood. And if you guys didn't know this, as you're playing through the game as Richter, if you go through a certain path, you can actually... one of the points of the game is by going the different path, you're rescuing people as you go on your way to fight Dracula. And Maria is I believe, let's see, she's like a 14-year-old little girl that you can rescue. And after you rescue her, you can actually play as that character in Rondo of Blood. And instead of a whip, you throw doves. It is bizarre. Yeah, I actually played that a few weeks ago, and it was bizarre. But it's kind of neat, just a different, style to the game. And so
you can play as her in this if you have the SotN version, right? But not the PlayStation one.
That's correct. Yeah, she doesn't show up on the PlayStation version, but it's tempting just to get a SotN version to be able to have this game and play as Maria. And I think you can even play as Richter from the beginning. I can't be sure of that, so someone I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong. Along with the characters, of course, we've got Dracula again. I'll mention that. And but along with the characters, maybe we should talk a little about the visuals of the game. I did a little research on the artist for the game. Ayami Kojima was the artist for this game, and this was her first appearance in the video game industry. And talk about a splash, right? I mean, this is a very beautiful game. But she was sort of famous for this sort of traditional Japanese artistry known as, and I'll probably butcher this, but I'll just put it out there. It's Bishonen, and literally this term translates to beautiful youth or beautiful youth boy, and sort of describes this sort of artistic style or aesthetic in East Asia, where a young man's beauty, sexual appeal transcends the boundary of gender and sexual orientation. So, in other words, when you pick up a Castlevania cover these days, you get a lot of sort of sex appeal, or it almost looks a little feminine, right? When you look at the covers, and that was sort of her art style and what you really see, especially in the main character Alucard.
I didn't know about this term that you researched there, but I did notice throughout the game that I thought the characters all seemed very flamboyant and just kind of over the top look to them with their clothing and even the way they walk and the way Alucard sits on the chairs and everything.
Right.
Just got that swagger,
Yeah, and you can really tell if you've ever seen the Japanese cover, and I think we had it as our banner. Fleach used it as the banner for our playthrough of the month.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did.
It's on that cover, but for whatever odd reason, why is it that we always get the most boring covers ever?
Yeah,
I mean, we just have a
just,
castle with lightning. I mean,
Yeah, it's not too bad though.
No.
It gets the point across.
yeah.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know if maybe American audience wasn't ready for a feminine vampire at the time. So
Or maybe they saw Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2 and didn't want to pull off that.
Yeah, looking back though, other than Simon's Quest, the Castlevania games have had some awesome artwork in North America. We've gotten some good ones.
Mm.
absolutely. Was there anything that just kind of stood out to you guys as far as the visuals in this game? Some things that you just really enjoyed about it?
The cape, the animation with the cape as you're walking and jumping, the way it moves in the wind and everything, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And also how it's color changed when you changed capes and then transformed over to the wings of the bat.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was really cool. That's what my 6-year-old daughter liked most about the game, because I ended up, toward the inverted castle, you have so much, you pick up so many of those gems that you can sell to the librarian that you're just overloaded with money. So, of course, I bought Joseph's cloak, and she was having a lot of fun with telling me what colors to change it into and what color my bat would be, which was kind of fun for us, because they enjoy watching me play a lot. So.
Yeah, I thought it sounded like a neat idea, but I just didn't feel like spending that much money on something just to change the color. Like it seemed worth it really from a practical point of view.
Well, there's nothing really else to buy in the game.
Yeah,
honestly.
true.
So,
I think it's cool that I was going to say about the visuals, the sprite work in general is, just pretty awesome on Alucard. Like the sprite animations, like, the way he walks and the way he turns around and runs and dashes, and all the enemies are really detailed and have really cool animations and movements. And I think it's kind of cool that we've actually played a couple PS1 games in a row from an era where games were trying to push into 3D, and we've played the Suikoden 1 and 2, and now we're playing Symphony of the Night. This handful of games that just stand out for kind of sticking with that 2D aesthetic and just nailing it. And if you look back now, Castlevania Symphony of the Night holds up visually, way better than a lot of games that tried to go 3D at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, it looks better than a lot of like N64 stuff. I mean, a lot of the polygonal type stuff. I mean,
definitely,
just definitely crisper. Just beautiful. And you mentioned the enemies. How about the way that like the enemies are like dispatched after you take them down, after you kill them?
That's just awesome.
Oh, the way some of them explode and scream, and you mentioned on the thread the bloody zombie. That was also one of my favorites. So it screams and just its belly cuts open and gushes blood. It's freaking awesome.
You cut it in half and the blood squirts straight up in the air and it's screaming. And you're like, oh my god, it's awesome. And like every enemy's different. I mean, it's just one of those games you can tell someone loved this game. They took a lot of time. This was, this is a labor of love. I mean, to do that for every enemy, just not, typical Castlevania games, you just kind of hit them. Simon's Quest, you hit them and they turn into a little thing of flame, or, they just sort of disappear, and you hear a sound. I mean, this was just completely just elaborate and just awesome.
And they kind of put it over the top, like from the beginning. This was my first time playing this game, but I've tried to start it so many times that I've played that opening sequence with Alucard just smashing those wolves in one shot, and they're all exploding and everything, and I always thought that was so cool. So it definitely was awesome to finally get going through the game and see all the other different enemies and how some of them like collapse in different ways when they're dying, or they like stab their sword into the ground, or their sword like comes off of them and keeps attacking you. Like some really cool things can happen.
I was going to say, I really love the same as you with the over-the-top explosions when you kill something. Like you kill a plant enemy and there's just like bombs going off everywhere. And it seems like some action movie with an awesome guy walking away from an explosion.
Yeah, it's so satisfying. Yeah. Like what good feedback to get from killing an enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The only one I think I didn't understand, though I still liked it, was the ones that they kind of go into a black hole or something near the end of the game, where you kill a few enemies and they sucked into oblivion or something.
Just sort of a void.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really strange.
Yeah, I still liked it though. I think it's
Oh
a
yeah,
nice
yeah, it's
touch,
still
you
nice.
know. But it is a little, odd considering some of the other enemies. One of the other things visually I really liked about this game was the backdrops of this game. Just the scenery in the background. It's that type where you're moving and it's staying somewhat still. As you move through it, and there's just some beautiful things in the background. Sometimes you'll get like waterfalls. You'll get like lava and stuff like that kind of creeping down, and it's, once again, it kind of gives it that, it gives it, like you said, I guess it would be like what 2.5D, gives it that depth,
Yeah, there's a lot of good parallax scrolling, and I guess we should mention like the environments in this game.
Sure.
Like it kind of goes hand in hand with that. Like you're in this castle, but I took note while I was playing that when I was down in the catacombs, I really felt like I was down in some freaking catacombs. You know what I mean? Like you're so you even though it's a 2D side-scrolling game, you have this feeling that you're in the depths of this castle, like way down underground in actual catacombs. It's crazy, like just the way the art style works and the psychological effect of, okay, you can pull up the map screen and know you're way down below the damn castle. It's a really cool effect.
Yeah, everything just works much better than you would expect. It's not like these separated areas where it's like, all right, this is the desert, this is the ocean area, this is the lava area. It's like it just felt like everything naturally transitioned into each other.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's things that would be in a castle, like libraries and bell towers, and not a chapel. I was going to say a church, but I guess chapel is a better word. But yeah,
Speaking of the chapel, actually, the stained glass windows in the back were really great. Like a lot of detail on that.
yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah, and the inverse of that, being in the bottom of the castle, being the top of the castle, felt the same way. I mean, with the the different sort of towers and things like that, all the empty space, the air, the open space
when
that
you're outdoors.
you fly through.
Yeah.
And that like you said, that feeling of being outdoors and stuff was just really cool. Yeah, beautiful game. And like you said, I mean, you're in the library, you're in the library. You're in the catacombs, there's the catacombs, Colosseum. I mean, everything. I mean, it just felt really, really good. I mean, they did a great job of mixing up scenery, with what you would expect it to be.
Yep.
So I guess I want to kind of move on and talk a little bit about the weapons and the different types of weapons in the game, the sub weapons, and sort of the item system that that was available in the game. And I think Shawn had touched on this a little bit. I think that you had put a post about something that I felt was very annoying too, about the like the healing items.
Yeah.
If you want to touch on that, I'll let you.
Sure, and that would probably be my only knock on the game, is that the item use system is a little bit clunky, where if you have either a two-handed weapon or a one-handed weapon and a shield, you have to take one of those things out of one of your hands, and if you want to use a potion, for example, put the potion in your hand, go back into the game, use it, then go back into your menu and re-equip your shield. So I mean, it's one of those things that's like, man, like this game would have been like people call the game perfect, but that's what kind of keeps it from being perfect for me. But it's damn close to it. But that's my like one gripe, and it's a minor gripe, because you get to a point where you're in the beginning of the game, you're leaning on, at least I was leaning on healing items a lot, but once you learn a couple spells that'll heal, or you get items or weapons that will steal HP or get it other ways, it's a little bit easier to not have to lean on potions all the time.
And another thing that got on my nerves about that is, like, you can't just use the item like on the item screen. You have to go back to the real time screen as you're playing, and you throw it out of your hand, and you have to walk into it.
Some of them you do. The potions,
the
I
potions
think
you
you'll
don't,
lose.
right.
You'll use, I mean, yeah, but when you use a pork chop or something, you just throw it on the ground and you have to walk back over it. Yeah, that is kind of weird.
And some of it was really useless. Like, green tea, I just healed 10 points. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't even use any, because I got all kinds of ice cream and strawberries, and I had like a whole buffet of and I didn't even use it.
I think I used it later on in the game because I never really figured out any of the weapons or items that stole health from enemies. I just didn't quite figure that out. And so I was using potions and food items throughout to the very end. And there were points where I was in a boss fight down to like 10 health or something, and I was just throwing down all my food on the floor trying to eat as fast as I can.
I'm about to die. Let's eat.
Yeah.
It was very bizarre, and I'm with you, Shawn. I mean, that was one of the most annoying things about this game, and I thought it could have been done better. I thought that there were enough save points around everywhere, and there was nothing that was overly difficult. They usually gave you a save point before you got to a fight if you picked the right room. And I guess the good thing was you always knew when you walked into a room if it was a boss battle, and they allowed you to back out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, pretty much. Like the music stops and the camera pans over, and you might say, "Wait, I'm not ready for this," and turn around and leave.
And you absolutely know. You're like, okay, this is a boss room. Let me like go across the way and see if there's a save right there, or go back to my last save and make sure I'm ready for this. So that was kind of nice that like the doors didn't shut behind you as soon as you walked into the room. As long as you were still and just kind of waited and didn't move forward too much, you could just kind of back up, which I thought was, I mean, it was a nice touch. I mean, it probably wasn't necessary. I mean, we're all adults here. We're all gamers. Maybe we weren't at the time when we played this, but I mean, we can handle like, taking a beat down, and then coming back and figuring it out again. But
yeah, this touches on one of my points real quick, if I may, is that the game actually for me started out really difficult, and I think Jamie would agree. Like for me, like the first 3 or 4 hours were just like I was getting brutalized by enemies, but I hit a turning point. Some point after I got the wolf power up, that it was almost like a roller coaster ratcheting up. Like within the first 3 hours, the game's really hard, and then I just I got over some kind of hump, and the game just like became so easy for me. And I think it's because there's a lot of things like Rich is saying with knowing where the boss battles are, the abundance of save rooms, the fact that the save rooms replenish your health and mana every time. Like you can really game the system in this game in a lot of ways, but that's one of the things that it has like an overall ease of use. And that's one of the things that I liked a lot about this game, is that it's only frustrating in the beginning, especially for somebody who's like me, I've never played this kind of game. And we even talked off the air before we started this playthrough like a couple weeks ago. And I was saying that like, I don't think I'm going to like this. I'm not into these kind of games. So it took me a while, but what I really loved was that after that initial difficulty and kind of grinding through it and really getting my butt kicked for a long time, learning how to, know where the save rooms are, know those boss rooms, know if I could grind in an area or, maybe, okay, I can explore that a little bit more. And like, this is the nature of the game that I'm kind of getting into here, is that, you can't go up to this area now, or how do I make this super long jump, because you don't know what the wolf power is yet, you know what I mean? Or when you go to a wall and it says mist could pass, and you say, okay, I guess I need some kind of mist power to get through this. So that's why they call it a Metroid game, a Metroidvania, or whatever you want to call it. Like that's what it is having areas blocked off that you will eventually be able to get through. Right, so I'm kind of digressing. My original point is the game is very exploitable in so many different ways, and you could play it. If you want to be hard on yourself, you could beat the whole game with the first weapon that you get in the game and not pick up any weapons. Like, there's so many different ways you can run this game by the end of my playthrough, I was just so invincible, and
Yes.
we'll talk about the Alucard shield rod combination. But like I was so invincible that I did the final boss battle twice because the first time I didn't even see any of it because I beat them both in like a second. You know what I mean? Like that's how overpowered I was by the end of the game, and it was so easy. But I just like that a lot. I like games where you can exploit and game the system as you want to and as you discover things. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that too. I think for me the difficulty at the beginning wasn't so much with the fighting, though that came up sometimes, but it was more with just being a little lost, which is typical of Metroid style games too. But I had a lot of problems with not understanding after getting an item from being a boss. It felt like I should be able to go into the preceding room, but it didn't seem to let me sometimes. Like I'd have to backtrack through the boss room again and then go find a different path somewhere else. And it didn't seem that clear,
Right.
like where I was supposed to be going. It was really directionless. There's also the problem with the save rooms, where until I looked up what the save room was supposed to look like, I didn't even know like what the save room was, because
yeah.
I just kept seeing these rooms with this weird floating thing, and I was like, okay, I must need some item later to do something here. But
Right.
and then it's like, oh, you just hold up. It
Yeah.
doesn't really explain that to you anyway.
Yeah, I didn't realize what it was at first either. I think I just kind of randomly hit up at one point. Oh, save. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
the save
again,
rooms were very cryptic.
so
Yeah.
both of you had never played the game before, correct?
No, I
Okay,
haven't played
okay.
it. I haven't played any
first
Castlevania game.
timer. Yeah.
I played it a little over 10 years ago, and yeah, for me it was like riding a bike. You know, you hadn't ridden a bike in years. You know, just the controls and everything just felt so good. You know, and you know, just kind of going through the game and kind of to touch back on what Shawn was saying. What I really like about the game is the way it's sort of like progress. Even though like it's an open game, it feels like really wonderfully like progressively designed. And what I sort of mean by that is when you're fighting enemies and you're fighting them on the level that you're currently on, and it feels like right. You feel like you have like a weapon that's good enough for where you're at. You know, you're not having to hit like an enemy like 20 times. You know, you're hitting it a few times, and then you know you're coming back later, and then you can hit it one time and it's gone. You know, it just felt like weapons, the items really had a nice ascension, if you will. They kind of like they kind of like paralleled each other, you know, and just kept going up. You know, as your weapons would get better, the enemies would get a little bit harder. You know, and it just really it felt very even. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I never felt like I came to an area and would think this is somewhere I'm not supposed to be at. Every time I
Right.
came to a new area, it just felt like I was supposed to be there. And it
Right.
seemed like the weapons matched really nicely with where you were going.
And yeah, just and let me say something else. I just want to say that Shawn's pessimism is like one of the best things about these playthroughs. I love
Yeah.
it when he's playing a playthrough with us because like you're like 3 days in and just like about to rage quit, and I'm just chuckling to myself like as I'm reading the forums, and I'm just enjoying. I'm because I'm like he's gonna love this game, and I'm just gonna wait on. I'm gonna wait for that bulb just to come on, you know, and that is one of the best things about these playthroughs. I love it. I love it. You know, just the. You know, just pessimistic at first, a little frustration, but you know, when you start getting in your groove, and I feel like as gamers, that's one of the best things about playing games is they are frustrated at first because you're coming across something new, but when you get in that groove, I mean, it's you know, it's second nature.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm again, I said this with Eco, and I've said it with a bunch of other games that we've played, like Parasite Eve and The Wind Waker, is that this is another big one to cross off my list. This is an all-time classic that, you know, I love all the Sony platforms, and this is an all-time classic PS1 game. Some people would argue the best PS1 game of all time. So I'm really happy to have played it and, you know, to cross it off my list. So
Yeah, we've played some big games this year. I mean, to be
Yeah,
quite
definitely.
honest, I mean some heavy hitters. It's been a heavy year. I'm really looking forward to see if we can hold that up either the next year or if we, you know, play a few more maybe sort of hidden gems. And but we'll see. We'll see. It should be interesting as we move forward.
Yeah.
Getting back to the weapons and the item system. something else I really didn't like was the design of that system and how everything was just mixed up and you had to scroll to find everything.
Yeah, that was terrible. And games without a sorting system and at the same time no way to discard items is just awful. Like it was so messy.
I
Annoying.
wasn't. Yeah, I was a little bit worried about you couldn't discard anything, but there's no limit, right? Like I never
No.
Right.
I never hit a limit. So
No,
long
no,
as
no.
you don't have a maximum of things you can carry, then I didn't have a problem with it. And it usually it just puts the newest thing that you get on the bottom, so you just got to deal with it.
But when you would switch things out to like get food, sometimes that would get sort of mixed up. Apparently, and I did not look over my instruction booklet, but apparently there's a way that you can manipulate that to where you can hit some buttons and it will list all the swords, all the shields, all the food items together. There's a way to organize it. Did you guys figure
Cool.
that out?
No, I didn't
I wish
do
I
that.
had, because there was the manual sorting option with Square, but I was doing that near the end of the game. I was like, I've just got too much stuff, and I started sorting it all manually.
Okay.
I never figured out any automatic way, and I wish I had, because I would have saved a lot of time.
I'm pretty sure that's right. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it might have been one of the other games, like the Japanese version or, another version of the game, but I'm pretty sure that you can do that, and I'm sure someone will point that out for us once again, or we'll put it in the show notes. We'll look at it. But, again, that's just something I wanted to touch on that was, quite a bit annoying to me. And like Shawn said, I mean, people want to say this game's perfect. It's not. I would never say that this is a perfect game, and it's hard for there to be, to me, to even say any game's perfect. It definitely has its flaws, but I mean, it's still a great game. It takes nothing away from how good it is. I think these things are sort of minor, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So, kind of moving on a little bit, we'll talk about some of the weapons and stuff, and we'll let you guys talk about the shield rod and how that worked, which is superbly overpowered. And
We'll say that towards the end, because that's the point where most people start to use it, I think.
Yeah. But you also have sub weapons in the game. Along with other things, you've got sub weapons, which is your secondary weapon, which is the, once again, something you have in every Castlevania game. And this one, you've got the return of the holy water, the cross, which is a little different in this game in that it's sort of a room kind of clearing option. You've got the dagger, of course, the weaker weapon that goes straight across. The axe, which is one of the hardest hitting weapons, but kind of flies in an arch and takes up a lot of hearts to use. The grimoire, which is the book. The lightning, which is a somewhat of a rare item in the game.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's only in one place. Well, I take that back. It's in two places in each castle. It's an item that you can pick up at one point, and then did you guys come across the room that had the looked like the laboratory, and it had all the items floating in the sort of the giant like test tubes or whatever, and you could break them.
I did.
And
Yeah,
get them.
I don't think I noticed that one.
Okay.
Or maybe it didn't stand out to me.
It looks like a sort of like a, it's red and blue. It looks sort of like a coat of arms. And
Is that the one? It shoots a little purple, like laser kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, but when it hits, it like electrocutes everything around it. It's pretty cool. If you didn't get to use it, you should definitely go back and check it out. It's one of my favorites, and I was always trying to hold on to that, or the grimoire, of course, because that was one of my favorites. The book that just kind of flies around you.
Yeah, I
spell
started
book.
on the axe just because it seemed to do a decent amount of damage, but then Shawn mentioned on the forums the book. And I tried that, and it's like, okay, never going back to the axe. This is so much better.
Right. And then, of course, I'm sorry, go ahead, Shawn.
I was just going to say, I was using the grimoire for a lot of the beginning of the game because it has a good defensive element to it, because it kind of shields you as it flies around you. And I also like that, like, clicky clackety sound that it makes when it goes around you. So there was that element to it. But then actually somebody... I think it was Jerry Greenwood on the forum mentioned that the holy water was super overpowered. So I was like, okay, I'm using holy water from now on. And it really is overpowered. I beat a lot of bosses with it. So
as it is in every game, every Castlevania game, the holy water is always overpowered. I mean, the only thing that's bad about it is the range. You have to be sort of close. You can't throw it very far. but it tends to be one of the most overpowered items in every Castlevania game. And
Right, and the fact that you
case
can
here.
just spam the hell out of it. If you have enough
Yep.
hearts, you can just wail on the button and drop like 50 of them at once, and you get all that separate damage going on at once.
And it immobilizes enemies too. Yep.
Yep, yeah, it's killer.
I think I tried it and I just saw the range, and this is the one that made that little green fire sort
Yes.
of thing. Yeah,
That's right.
And I think I just thought it didn't feel very effective when I first used it, so I kind of never went back to it and didn't really give it much of a chance. So I sort of stuck with the grimoire through most of the game, and only used the cross on a couple end game bosses. But otherwise, I didn't really find much use out of everything else. I know Shadow Kisarga, you mentioned the dagger being good on bosses, but it just seemed too weak to me. Like it took so much time to throw it that it wasn't really worth it.
Yeah, it just seems like you had to. It only used minimal amount of hearts, but you just had to throw so many, and it was like, okay, I'm just gonna stand here and just keep throwing things. All right, I'm just gonna go hit this thing with my with my sword,
like one
whatever.
hit your sword versus like 50 hits of the dagger.
For certain things, it's probably pretty good. I mean, like the Medusa heads, things that you can take out in one swipe. Those things are kind of cool if you can throw something straight across the screen and hit them before they get close to you. But other than that, I just
Oh, and one that I think you forgot to mention, the that little jewel thing. I can't remember what it was called, but
the
ricochet
diamond.
one?
Yeah,
the
the
that
diamond.
ricochets.
Absolutely, the
that was pretty
diamond
good.
shows up in Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, but it's instead of like a laser. But I'm glad you mentioned that. Instead of a laser, it's more of a sort of like a hexagon or something that kind of, or pentagon. Hexagon that sort of like bounces around the room instead of like a small laser. But
Yeah, I found that one pretty useful. That was kind of my secondary go-to after the book.
oh,
Because
really?
Yeah, I found it was pretty powerful on a lot of bosses, and it could get angles on ones that the book didn't seem to hit very well.
I never used it in any boss battles. I thought it was a fairly worthless item to have.
I thought it
just taking
seemed
out
pretty
trash.
fast, and,
Yeah.
it was like a little more powerful than the dagger, but kind of a similar style of attack.
Yeah. I could see that in an enclosed room where you're fighting a boss. If it's flying around everywhere, I can see how that would be an effective item in a boss fight. But like I said, for trash mobs, I didn't find it really useful. So, but that's cool. I mean, it's cool that we all use sort of different things. And then of course the pocket watch, again, staple of the Castlevania games. But something in this game that I really like is that it had a secondary purpose, and that was to access some different areas in the game, right?
I think that was the only time I actually used it. I think I didn't like how it used 20 hearts every time I used it, and so I avoided it because of that.
But it did allow you to access that, the area, a certain area in the clock tower, and I thought that was, that was kind of a neat touch. I think someone had asked me, "Gosh, how do I move that statue?"
Yeah, that
in
was
the
me.
forums. Yeah.
But I don't think it was the clock tower. I think we've got the names confused. I saw in the thread people were a little confused too, because the clock tower is the name of the place with the floating skulls and the giant skulls, as far as I know.
Floating skulls, the ones that go up and down?
No, the giant like glowing blue ones.
Are you talking about Medusa heads? And like
no,
the sort of
ones
the
that
bird
go, like,
women?
clack, clack, clack.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what the area is called. It's
Yeah,
the
but I think
first
that's-
area where you have to use the wolf power to make the long jumps.
I actually, speaking of the Wolfire, I never actually figured that one out. I got that unlocked, and it's like, I tried a bunch of combinations, I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I think I just used Bat to get across there eventually.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I
okay.
guess we're talking about like the giant clock that's sort of in the center of the castle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew which room we were talking about, but I think
Yeah.
the name of it isn't Clock Tower. I don't remember what it was, but
Yeah.
there's another place called Clock Tower, which might confuse people.
Yeah, well, usually the clock tower in most of the Castlevania games has to do with the place where all the sort of the giant gears and stuff like that are. And it usually has like a sort of, there'll usually be like kind of swinging like pendulums and things like that you see on clocks. That's usually, what the area looks like in most Castlevania games. It's again, it's them paying homage. The clock tower is always the most crappy and aggravating part of mostly any Castlevania game, and Castlevania nuts will tell you that. And it always has Medusa heads floating around, and they're always knocking you back, and it really stinks. So
Yeah, well, that's the one I'm talking about too. But I thought that the place where we used the stopwatch wasn't that one, but it was the one with the big clock face, which is a different location.
Well, kind of moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about the controls of the game. I mean, things you liked or disliked about the controls of this game.
I like the fact that it's the traditional Castlevania controls for the most part. I mean, you're pressing up and attack to use your sub weapon. You have a main attack power. You have a jump. But then I guess what makes this game special is all the extra stuff that you can do as far as when you get your double jump powers or transforming into your when you're doing your shape shifting into your different forms. And also, I guess, do you want to talk about the spell system? Does that fall under the controls? Because that's a big part of what the spell system is, I guess.
Yeah, we'll hit that. Just let me touch on something you were talking about, and one of the things that I really liked was the how you use the top buttons, how they were mapped to the different forms. You know, the bat form, the mist form, and the wolf form. That was something I thought was really cool because you could just switch, in between those on the fly. You didn't have to do a certain button combination or anything like that. You know, it was just the touch of a button, and I thought that was a really awesome design. I mean, it sounds simple, but with the PlayStation 1, I mean, it was just a great use of those. Those top upper triggers, which was great, and just something I really liked about it.
Kind of makes up for the cumbersome item system. Is that they got that part right about it. If right as you're doing a jump that you realize, oh, I have to turn into the bat and go and fly up. You know what I mean? Like it's all instantaneous.
And you can kind of get a little bit of extra height first with your double jump before even turning into the bat, because the bat tends to be a bit slower.
Yeah.
Right. We'll kind of kick it back to what you were talking about, Shawn. If you want to speak about the spells and things of that nature with the controls.
Yeah, so this game has a spell system where you can do certain kind of spells. Some of them attack, some of them heal under certain circumstances. And the way you do them is by certain keystrokes that are basically pretty much like fighting game moves.
I was going to say, I felt like I was playing Street Fighter.
Yeah, and they're really hard to do, but they're kind of worth it. And the funny thing is, you can buy them from the librarian, but you can also just kind of discover them by accident, or if you just look at an FAQ or somebody tells you how to do them, you can just do them. You don't have to unlock them in any way.
Right.
So I had a couple of coworkers of mine are actually like fanatically obsessed with this game. So I knew about Soul Steal pretty early on, which is a very powerful spell that kills most enemies and it kills everything on the screen, takes a lot of their HP, it breaks all the candles, and it'll break any false walls or ceilings or floors in the room. So it's a very powerful spell. But the way to do it is to hit back, forward, down, back, forward, and attack at the same time. It's this whole
That's stupid.
I tried to do it so many times that like my thumb was starting to get torn up, like trying to do it. It's really hard to do until you get the hang of it. And even when you get the hang of it, you're just kind of rolling around the control pad, just trying to do it over and over. But it's a pretty cool system, and it's like you don't have to use it at all. You could get through the whole game without even knowing about it or using it. It's just one more extra layer of complexity and just another system that's in the game for you to discover. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think I would have preferred to have it either as an equipable item or tied to some other simpler button combination, like maybe the opposite of your sub weapon, like holding down and an attack or something. And I think I would have preferred that because it just was so difficult to pull these off that to me it wasn't even worth it. Like, I understand that the Soul Steel one sounds pretty good, but after trying Dark Metamorphosis for the first time, I just was done with spells. It's like, it's not happening for me, and I don't really like fighting game difficult combinations like that to begin with, and this seemed even more touchy than those.
Yeah, I completely agree. The only one that I used was Summon Spirit. I would use that in rooms where, I needed to knock, the ceiling out or something like that, and I didn't have a sub item that would help me knock the ceiling out. You could use that, and it would hit them. And then there were several boss fights where you could stand on platforms and really dodge really well, or the bosses wouldn't attack you if you're on platforms. and you could just spam that and just take out the bosses. I mean, it didn't take a lot of hearts, or I'm sorry, not hearts, but mana. And so, I would use that one. But I do remember on the forums that, and I can't remember who posted it, but there was, someone was like, "Is anybody using magic in this game?" And it's sort of one of those things. It's neat, but it feels kind of tagged on, if you will. It's not
Kind of
necessary.
like, and something that's not in our notes, but we could hit on real quick is the familiars, and they're kind of in the same vein.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to wait on talking about that, or if we could just lump it in with the magic as something that's kind of there if you want to use it, but it's not crucial to completing the game. It's kind of cool, but you don't have to use it. The familiars are kind of like that to me too.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where I was going to move on to next. It's in the outline, bro. Look at it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Forgot.
I think they were called like cards, but I mean they were called familiars, but the I guess the relic was called
that's
the card,
why.
right?
Yeah, in your notes
like the
you call them
demon card.
cards. Yeah, I was thinking of familiars. So you get the card, and that gives you the ability to use the familiar. That's what it is.
I really liked how they level up individually. It took me a little while to notice that, actually, because I forgot about the familiars menu. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Which one did you guys use most?
The fairy, for me. I thought that was pretty useful.
Yeah.
I use the fairy a lot, and also the sword after I got it.
Yeah.
I think
awesome.
I think the familiars to me were almost like I liked them more. It almost how you felt like you had a friend following you around, and they're like talking to you. It's kind of cool, like when the sword is going slice, you know what I mean, as he's flying around. It's like pretty cool that they, and again, this is like the melding of the newer technology with an older style of game, is that they have a game on CD now. They can have digitized voice acting, even in game, not just in a cutscene, but in game while you're playing. So even like with your familiars are talking to you, or when you pull off one of those spells, Alucard will say "Soul Steal," and it's pretty cool in game to have that.
I guess my only issue with the familiars, I liked them, but they just, I guess, I would have liked to had some option to like somewhat control them. Does that make sense? I mean, that you have, you're just sort of depending on them to, attack and do what they do at sort of random times, That's why I probably like the sword more than any, because if you were in a room of enemies or a boss, it was going to fly around that room and fly toward it and then spin.
Yeah.
But the others, it was just sort of erratic. They would attack sometimes they would just kind of stand there, and usually as I'm going through a room, I'm taking things out so quick that they just have no time to react at all.
Yeah, the like the bat and the demon both are really slow, and half the time they didn't
Skull
even do anything.
too. The skull was slow too. I mean, the skull and the bat were pretty much the same. They would just pretty much fly up and latch onto something, and then hit it. After a little bit of time.
Yeah, with the fairy, I didn't actually realize at first that it was just using my own items to heal me and other things like that. I thought for a long time that it was giving me these free 100 health heals, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This passive thing that'll heal me before I die, and then after a while I noticed, oh wait, I'm almost out of potions now. Okay.
Yeah. And the fairy would find secret walls. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
I think I did, yeah.
Okay.
She'll give you little hints too.
Yeah. And then the demon, what's this button? I'm gonna press it. Yeah, I mean, it just cracked me up. It's so awesome. You're just kind of walking around and you've got him, and then you just run across the switch, and he just goes over to it and starts talking about it. It's just cracked me up, But
sorry, I was just gonna say, how did you actually find the sword? Because I never found that throughout the game.
I actually had to consult a video to find
it.
I'd found it before playing through. And I knew it was not in the inverted castle. And before I went to the inverted castle, I was like, I'm just gonna look up, see how to find it. It's in a very, very random place. Through the top of it's through the top of it's sort of like a stone like hallway, and it's just you would just have to, someone playing it would actually have to accidentally break that piece of wall or hit it and put a crack in it and then find it. It's very random, isn't it, Shawn?
Yeah, I actually had to ask you for that video that you sent me to get that wall open. Although I did,
Yeah.
like I said, I had a feeling there was something about that area, but I didn't have any.
Yeah.
I guess I could have just opened it with a sub weapon, but I didn't think I had the capability to do anything about it. I don't think I could have jumped up there as early in the
Yeah.
game as I realized there was something there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
that
didn't.
was kind of random.
Yeah, I didn't use a walkthrough for the rest of the game, but just that one thing, I was like, I really want to find that sword because it's my favorite. That's my favorite familiar. I want to find it. So I did, consult a walkthrough for that, and so I think having that also makes the inverted castle a lot easier, in my opinion. But we'll talk about the forms a little bit. We already talked about the controls and how could switch from bat to wolf to mist. I thought all of those were very useful. Each of them had different abilities you could find too after you had found the soul of the wolf, soul of the bat. I guess I really didn't use a lot, like the bat fireballs I didn't use a lot,
No,
and the
I
bat
didn't either.
sonar I only used in that there was one dark room, where the before you're going to get the spike breaker armor, where you can like throw out that echo and it will kind of light up the room and you can see the spikes so you can navigate in the dark through
Yeah,
that.
I don't think it even functioned in any other room, did it?
No. So
No,
I
but
mean,
you can eventually upgrade it so it becomes an attack. But
Oh,
it's
did
so
you?
late in the game by that point,
Right.
I never even used it by the time I got it.
I think it's like Power of Echo or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Something of that. The only like sort of add-on that I found useful, and I think we were talking about this before the call, and it was super overpowered. Was the I think it was called the Power of Mist.
Mm-hmm. Gas cloud or something like that.
Yeah, and it's where you just become this like poison mist cloud, and I found that I think in my playthrough of the inverted castle for whatever reason, I went from the library, not from the library, but from I guess Dracula's room, to the left and went up the outer wall, and then from the outer wall I went over and then kind of cleared the which was the sort of the bottom area of the first castle. I sort of cleared that first, and I was able to get that. And after that, I still had probably 5 or 6 boss fights left.
Wow.
And I would just convert into that mist and just sit there until it died. I mean, that was it's pretty easy. And going that way, I was also able to get the Alucard shield is up in that area as well. So, for anybody who's like trying to kind of, I guess, speed run it, I guess I would say, if those are items, I'm not sure what items, I've never seen a speed run of this game, but if you need those items, it's probably a pretty decent way to go,
Yeah, I think those two, both of those, well, the shield rod, Alucard shield combo, and the gas cloud, I got those really close to the end of the game. So I think I only actually used the shield combination for the last 3 bosses, maybe, which for me was Galamoth and then Shaft and Dracula. And the gas cloud, I didn't actually think to use that on the bosses just because once I got the shield combo, it worked too well to use anything else.
Yeah, same thing happened to me. I had every relic except for one, and I think the one I was missing was the one that makes the bat dash, if there is such a thing, like the bat.
No,
flies
there's
really
not. That's
fast.
That's actually a combination.
Oh, okay. So I wonder
yeah.
which one I was missing, because I think I had that poison mist or the power mist or whichever one you're talking about. I was
Yeah.
only missing one relic. I guess I don't know what it is.
Yeah, not sure. You might have to go back and look through that. I think each I want to say that each each form had 3 powers attached to it, and then each there were 5 cards. So and then there were a few other sort of random relics as well. So
Right.
Yeah, also for the mist, I forgot to mention that I didn't even realize you could avoid enemy attacks with it until pretty late in the game. So for the longest time, I didn't use it that often because I thought its only purpose was to go through those crates. But then once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I can skip entire rooms here and places where I'm having trouble with.
Well, I'll go ahead and say the poison mist does not work on Dracula at the end. It does not affect him. But I did use it, where he opens his hands up and he there'll be like a succubus in between his hands before he squishes it. I would turn into mist to avoid that attack. Or if I got stuck on the outside, if I got pushed to the outside, I would flip into mist to get back to the center so that I could keep, stabbing at the heads or, whatever.
I killed him just too fast for myself to even get to that point. Like, I didn't see him spawn a succubus or anything.
Oh, wow.
I mean, maybe we should talk about that combination now, if we're...
Yeah, we keep alluding to it,
yeah.
and that was a big turning point in the game for me as well.
Sure.
The shield
rod.
Yeah, the shield rod itself has a whole system to it. Again, another system in this game that is just based on one weapon that you can find in the game and all the shields that you find. It's crazy.
Yeah,
but
the shield rod on its own isn't even that good of a weapon too. Until you use
on
it
its own, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to have a shield equipped, and it has all kinds of different powers depending on which shield you're using. But of course, what you really want and what we keep talking about is the Alucard shield, which is found right, not the Alucard shield, but the Alucard shield, which is located in the inverted castle at the top, meaning the literal top, which is actually the bottom of the inverted castle. But combined with the shield rod, what that does, it does. If you activate it by pressing both attack buttons, and it does this cool animation, and then you hold it out and just run around, and it breaks all candles, and it does 251 damage like for every hit.
Something like that, yeah.
And it also heals you 8 HP for everything that you touch. So you're just running around, killing everything instantly, collecting every item that you see. I think it makes hearts pop out of everything too. So you're just loading up on hearts and HP. It's just so. I mean, if there was anything like in a game that is so game-breakingly overpowered, I mean, this has to go down in history as one of those things without being a cheat code, basically.
Yeah, and like you said, you could use it with other items as well, with other shields as well. So every shield had its own sort of special. I mean, even the most basic shields had their own like little special sort of attack, which I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, they are pretty cool, and they do have like really cool animations. When you set them up, like some cool, like a dragon will come out, or like a goddess will come out and heal you, or they'll fight for you. It's pretty cool. Like, you gotta
and
try 'em
sometimes it
all.
was. Yeah, sometimes it was like, it was a cool animation, but it didn't do a whole lot,
Yeah, that's true, too.
It was kind of, a lot of work for nothing. But I actually used it for another fight. I actually used it in conjunction with another shield for another fight. I believe it was the Herald shield that was sort of like the shield that's like divided into like 4 colors on the front.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And that was the one that was fire and lightning protection, and I actually used that in the battle against Galamoth. So
cool.
Every time I got hit with the lightning, it was taken off 1, and so that was really sort of it took me forever to take him down, because and I did not have the Alucard shield yet. Even though it's in sort of the same area, I somehow missed it on the way to him. I got to him first. But I did use that method to take him down, which really again,
must have taken a long time.
Took forever. Oh my gosh, it took forever. That guy has some serious hit points.
Yeah, my problem with not problem, but it was my own fault with that whole shield rod system was that I didn't realize you had to hold the shield up after activating it. And so for the longest time, I was like, well, this Alucard shield thing, it does a cool animation, but it doesn't seem to do anything. Because before that, I had been using the Knight shield where it said defensive up or something like that, and I thought it felt like that was passive.
Right.
I don't think you need to hold the shield up for that one. But then with the Alucard one, you did, and so I didn't realize that at first. And then once I did realize that, it's like, okay, I'm not using anything else with this.
The game's over at that point.
Exactly,
Like, you can do anything.
Yeah, I killed Galamoth in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, and it is overpowered, but it's kind of a cool thing. I mean, your normal player that's playing this game is not going to find that,
No.
But
I wouldn't have without a video.
Yeah. No. But if people like us are playing it, it's kind of a cool thing to have in a game because you're like, yeah, this is way overpowered. Let's just run around and have some fun with this, and you can kind of choose how you want to play the game,
Yeah, and that kind of
when you have it.
enabled me. Like I mentioned on the forum that there's nothing on the inverted castle. There's nothing on the east side of the castle worth checking out. Like there's no necessary items to complete the game. And I said, well, I'm not going to explore it. But I was having so much fun just plowing through everything with the Alucard shield that I ended up exploring it just because I could, and it was like, like a hot knife through butter, just going
Right.
through the rest of the game. So I just did it, you know what I mean? Because I said
Yeah.
it's everything short of a cheat code, just to be, godlike running through the game.
Absolutely.
I really
Absolutely.
felt like that.
Yeah. And you don't feel so bad about it because you're not really manipulating the game. That's
No.
part of the game,
Yeah, it
right?
is part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean,
so
you earned it.
You don't have your
You're-
game. You don't have your game genie plugged in. It's
Right,
part of the
right.
game.
And that's what I was talking. When I was talking about earlier, how the game's really tough in the beginning, but by the end, you're running the show. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So we touched on a little bit of we spoke about Galamoth, which we were talking before the show, and I think we can all agree that guy is probably like the suckiest enemy in the game. I mean, maybe not to you guys because you guys apparently had the overpowered shield rod Alucard shield, but we were talking a little bit about what our favorite boss was in the game, and it's funny because we for those of you guys listening, we didn't want to say what I didn't want anybody to say what their favorite boss was because we were just like, well, let's let it be a surprise. But somehow, we kind of pulled it out of each other, and we all had the same favorite boss, right?
Yeah.
And that was I thought it was called Legion, but I think that's what it's called in other games, as Shawn had pointed out to me. But the name of the boss is actually Grand Falloon, and I'll let Shawn talk about that for a minute. I think he has something sort of special to add to that.
Oh, sure. Which I didn't look up in the meantime, but I should have. The Grand Falloon is in the game. It's just this mass of bodies, like human bodies, and it's really cool. They like fall down. It's just bodies raining on you, and they
It's
just
a corpse ball.
walk over. Yeah, it's like this. Just big ball of human forms falling and walking around. But it's actually it's from a Kurt Vonnegut novel, and it is from Cat's Cradle, and it's I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now. It's a group of people who share who affect a shared identity or purpose, but whose mutual association is actually meaningless. So that's why it's known as Legion in a lot of other games, and the concept of Legion is like a group mind, or a collection of people or entities, or consciousnesses where the group is bigger than the individual. So it's like it's a really symbolic thing, actually. But on the other hand, it's also really cool that it's just this massive bodies, and as you beat it, like as you're taking off sections of it, they sections of bodies explode, and they expose this like brain thing, and it's an awesome just a really cool boss battle.
Yeah, there's nothing special about fighting it. I mean, it's not overly difficult or anything.
No.
It is what it is. It's not jumping around the screen. It's not firing anything at you. It's just dropping bodies all over the floor, and it's so bizarre, but it looks so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
and like you said, when it explodes as well when you knock a section of it off. I mean, it's really cool.
It's really satisfying to knock down all the bodies too once they're on the ground. Like one hit for everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I propose this question: second favorite boss.
Second
wow.
favorite. That's a more difficult question. Maybe I'll let Shawn go first. I think he had a second favorite lined up already.
Well, I really liked the final form of Dracula. Actually, the last boss. It's the final boss of the game. Now we're talking about the Alucard shield and the shield rod, and what I had said off the air before we started rolling was that I went through Shaft. I didn't even see what Shaft did. I beat him in literally 1 or 2 seconds. Like I just jumped and he was dead.
Right.
Dracula,
Yeah.
I kind of bided my time a little, but I just kind of blew right through him too. So I actually just reloaded my save and did it again. And I really, Dracula's pretty cool. He does like this kind of thing where he backs off into the background and shoots at you from a distance. And I also like that he's kind of like this three-headed monster that kind of, I don't know if you guys made this connection, but like the heads kind of look like alien heads, like from the Alien movies, the xenomorphs, like the H.R. Geiger designs.
Yeah.
I can see
Did
that.
you guys think that too? Like I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah.
was kind of cool. Like
And sort of metallic looking as well. Sort
Yeah,
of like
exactly.
those are. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I
absolutely.
liked Dracula's final form was pretty cool. And I just want to throw it in. I did not have that much of a problem with Galamoth. I don't know. Maybe I saw him much later in the game, and I was better equipped to take him on. Like I don't know what's up with that. But I
You didn't
also
use the
had.
shield rod combo with
I'm
the
not
Alucard
sure.
shield?
I don't think so.
If
I-
you didn't have a problem, with him, I'm sure you used the shield rod combo because he's pretty tough. I mean, he takes a
Maybe.
lot of hits. I mean, and he's hard to get close to. I mean,
Yeah,
he
I'll
fires
buy
these
that.
orbs at you.
That's probably what happened. I remember
Yeah.
like Death was the first boss that I faced with the shield rod and Alucard, and I just again plowed right through him. I couldn't, and that's I guess that's the one drawback. A quick aside of the shield rod Alucard shield is that like Death could have been a really cool boss. I don't know. I just I knocked him over in 2 seconds. Like
Yeah, exactly.
so I might have you might miss out on a little bit of that because of that. But I also want to throw in one more thing. One of my least favorite bosses was the hippogriff, which just an easy boss in general. But early in the game, I was still kind of getting used to the controls, I was calling them Twitch controls, but that's actually an exaggeration. That's just because I'm not used to playing this. I'm not into playing this kind of game all the time. So basically he's so easy that you can duck under all of his attacks. You just got to not be standing where he is when he lands on the ground, and that he's very easy to beat. But he was giving me fits because he's actually pretty far away from a save room the first time you encounter him. So
Yeah.
it took me a long time to figure out what to do with him. So that was probably my least favorite boss, just from that perspective, because I had so much trouble with him early in the game.
I think that's a big part of most of the fights, not just the boss fights, too, is realizing that you can duck under a lot of their attacks. Like, there's many enemies where I found they were really annoying, and then I realized that their attacks were pretty high up, and ducking just made it so much easier.
Right.
Yeah. I would say probably my favorite, or second favorite, I guess, boss battle. And my opinion is kind of based on art and sort of the design of the battle too, and the scenery. I really like the Scala battle. The woman that sat on top of the two wolf heads with the tentacles.
I found that one kind of annoying.
Yeah, it was a little annoying, but I did really like it a lot.
I like that
like
one
I said,
too.
based on the animation and just the art of it, it was really cool. I really liked that.
I believe that was a spam holy water kind of boss for me. I think there's like pillars in that
Yeah.
room you can just stand on and just
Yes,
rain
there are.
holy water down on her.
Yeah. It's a throwback to Homer's The Odyssey as well. If you guys weren't familiar with that, Scala
Never
and
heard of it.
Charybdis. Charybdis. Charybdis was a giant whirlpool, and Scala was sort of like a rock monster that would pick off sailors as they sailed by, just pull them off of the ships. So, just there was an allusion to that, which I thought was pretty cool.
I haven't read it yet, but I do have it, and I'm planning on reading it eventually.
All right, and Jamie, second favorite?
Second favorite, I'm looking at the list here, and I'm thinking I actually really enjoyed the one with the fake characters, fake Grant, Sypha, and Trevor.
Okay, yeah.
And that one was actually pretty cool. It's just sort of normal people that you're fighting. And, it feels like they're normal people. I guess they're fakes of the real ones. And I didn't really understand who they were. I'm assuming it's some reference to a previous game.
Well, that'll be a really good transition then. for us to
Well,
talk about
okay.
that. But go ahead, finish what you're saying first.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I just felt that they were kind of fun, like having the
Yeah.
three of them going there and the very different style of attacks that they had.
Yeah.
It wasn't overly difficult, but it wasn't super easy either because I
Yeah.
didn't have the shield rod Alucard shield combo at that point.
Okay. Yeah, I just gas cloud. That was it. Just
Yeah,
gas
I
cloud
didn't
that whole
have that
fight.
either. I don't think at that point. So.
Yeah, yeah. So, but they're actually from Castlevania 3.
Oh, are they?
They're
Okay.
they're the characters of Castlevania 3 that you can unlock, along with Alucard, of course. So that was kind of a kickback, kind of an allusion to that. And that's something that I did want to talk about with this game is how it's a really awesome throwback to those earlier games. I think it's something we talked about a little bit earlier and sort of alluded to, but not specifically. So you had that as a part of Castlevania 3. Did you guys notice anything about Simon's Quest that they integrated into the game?
I never actually played Simon's Quest when we did that playthrough. So.
Shame.
I know.
Yeah,
Shame on
I
me.
don't know enough about it. Like
Okay,
I've played it,
okay.
but not to completion, and I don't remember it that much. So
Okay, so one of the premise of Castlevania, Simon's Quest, Castlevania 2, is that you're collecting all of Dracula's body parts.
Okay.
You actually in the inverted castle, you collect all the same body parts, the 5 body parts, to put Dracula. Well, in this case, you do it to enter the room where he's at, but that's what you collect to put him back together. So that's the illusion of Castlevania 2. Of course, the bosses, the enemies are, reused for almost every Castlevania game. And for the first Castlevania, the room where you fight Dracula is basically the same setup, just better graphics. And so the tower, even that sort of leap that you have to make from one side to the next. I mean, all of that is from Castlevania 1, just an allusion to the original. And that's what's so cool about these games is they keep reusing sort of they make it look nicer, but they keep using like the same scenery, the same enemies and things of that nature. But there's also down, I want to say it's either in the Colosseum or in the Catacombs, there is an allusion to Rondo of Blood. There is this giant, in Rondo of Blood, there's this crazy scene where this giant like horned beast with no backside, it's just all chewed off, like stalks you and chases you across the screen, and you
That's
just
creepy.
have to run from it. Yeah, it's really creepy. But that is actually integrated like into the background, into the wall of one of the areas. And so it's pretty cool. I mean, just something I wanted to touch on real quick. I didn't want to
Was
spend a
that
lot of time on it.
a big mural in the background of one scene? I think I remember seeing a couple places with big murals, and I thought it
Yeah,
felt like
it's
it had
not
a
like
purpose.
it's not a mural. It's actually like it looks like the animals like decaying in the
Oh,
background.
okay. I think I sort of remember vaguely what you're talking about.
If you look up Rondo of Blood, you'll see that beast. So it's a pretty iconic part of that game.
That's really cool.
Because it's so bizarre. But I just wanted to kind of mention that, and also I guess we'll just kind of move on and talk a little about the music.
Mm-hmm.
Music in this game was, and I'll probably butcher this as well. It was composed by Michiru Yamane.
I think it's a Yamane.
Yamane. Yep, Yamane. That would sound better. And it contains elements from several music genres: classical, techno, gothic, new age jazz, and of course some subgenres of metal, including like thrash metal and black metal. It's bizarre. Like, I noticed that in the music, but just didn't really. You don't really put that together as you're playing it. It all sounds like it goes together, but it's a ton of different styles of music, and it's bizarre how someone can take these different genres and mix them in something that's just so cohesive.
Yeah, and I already had a bit of a favorite picked out here, the clock tower music. I think
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's a reference to previous games. It feels like it's a Castlevania style theme to me, but
Okay.
this was definitely one of my favorite themes. It's like a mix of metal with something else, and it just felt really good.
Yeah, it's bizarre that again, like I said, you can combine those things and it would just sound so great. I can't point to a specific track that I really liked. I mean, I thought the music was just incredible for the entire game. And it just fit well with the atmosphere of the game. It really brought something to it, which that just doesn't happen with every game,
Mm-hmm.
as we all know. So
I think the only thing I have a little bit against the music is not so much the music itself, because on a song by song level, they're all really good. But I felt like some of the music didn't really fit in with what was actually happening on screen that
Okay.
well. Like some of them felt a little bit too upbeat and cheery almost for such a creepy abandoned castle with all these intense monsters and crazy stuff going on, and then they've got this music where, like, a friend of mine had a good way of saying it. She said it's like heroes getting ready to save the day or something like that.
yeah. There's some sort of like heroic type
Yeah,
music. Yeah,
but
you're
it felt like it
right.
didn't
You're
really
right.
fit with the creepy horror atmosphere sometimes.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, and I think I know exactly what track, or at least one of the tracks that you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was
I don't have the
specifically,
name of it, but I'll try to post that on the discussion thread.
I think
In
the
the
one that
notes.
I felt fit with a room the best was in the abandoned mines, where it just had that really soft, slow piano playing, and that was in the rooms where it's like kind of rock walls and everything, and it's just water dripping everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
That one was really good.
So I'll just kind of move into this next section. Unless Shawn, if you have anything to add about the music, we'll let you go to it.
Well, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about "I Am the Wind."
All right.
Oh,
Yeah. Good
well,
point.
Oh
yes.
yeah, but no, actually, a lot of people hate on this song, and I can understand why. It's
Yeah,
very
I'm gonna be one of those
corny.
guys.
It sounds like a Kenny G
It's Kenny
song
G,
or
man.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
But look, I like it. All right, I think it. I think it's
Can
really
I just say
soothing.
that? Can I just say that I would rather have Christopher Cross's "Ride Like the Wind" instead at the end of it?
I guess I don't, dude. I don't know I don't know how to say. Like, I know it's one of those things I like in spite of myself. You know what I mean? And just so we all know, this song was not written by the same composer who did all the rest of the music for the game. This "I Am the
Okay.
Wind" was somebody else's work. So that's
Okay.
why a lot of people hate it. Other than the fact that it's really corny and cheesy, but I don't know. I like it. It gets stuck in my head, and as far as just all kidding aside, the music in general, it was something kind of like what Jamie was saying was that for me it went good with the game. I was kind of feeling it as I was playing the game, but like I wouldn't go back and say like, oh, I like this song. I don't know them by name. I didn't pop the CD in my CD player to listen to the music. Like, I've listened to a couple other podcasts that covered this game, and they throw some music in there, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that song. That was really cool. But it was more for me. It just like was part of something that meshed in with the gameplay.
It's more of an overall feeling and not a specific like or dislike.
Yeah, I mean, there's some
Yeah.
songs that really stand out to me, but I'm not going to sit here and hum them for anyone.
Yeah,
I will say on the what's it called, Call of the Wind or whatever, that
I Am the Wind.
I am the wind, right? That I sort of agree with both of you. I like it as a song, but I again felt it didn't fit.
Yeah.
Like it just felt really out of place and not right for Castlevania. But at the same time, it did feel like a good credit song. It did seem to work for that.
Yeah, I just wanted some like girl to be singing like some Japanese that I didn't understand. I mean, that's what I would have liked there.
Yeah,
That
I
happens
would
with
have
some
taken
endings.
that. I always like
Yeah.
that in general.
Yeah,
So
I do too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a bizarre thing that as well, I don't want to say American gamers, because let's say North American gamers, like we get that stuff at the end of games sometimes. It's just sort of beautiful and nice. We don't understand it at all, but we love it and come to expect it.
yeah,
It's
That would've
odd,
been nice.
but
I
pretty
especially in a Konami game.
awesome. Right? True.
I think I would have really been happy with, like, I don't know, a remake of one of the really well-known themes from Castlevania, like either orchestrated or some really hardcore metal version of it, or something. I don't know, like just a remake of some existing song, so it just feels like you've gone full circle.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been better. But like I said, the song itself isn't terrible. It's just not quite fitting.
No. It was just a little odd choice for there. Yeah, I agree. So one of the things I think Jamie, I think that you probably sort of you and I kind of had a little bit of back and forth about this on the forums about and Shawn, I don't know if you took part in this or not. I can't remember, but we were talking about like like the endings. With this game, there are two parts to it, and I had to sort of let everyone know, like during the second week, I was like, okay, guys, we want to play the whole game. This is a playthrough. We don't want to just play half of the game, so you're gonna need to like look at a playthrough, or to be able to find a few things in this game to get from the regular castle to the inverted castle. And I didn't even think about that before I started playing it, because I beat this game fairly quickly, and kind of figured that out. And I was like, oh, I need to throw this out there really quick so they know. And I think your opinion, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're kind of the opinion that had you not known, you might have thought that beating Richter would be the end of the game.
That was
had
what
you
I
not known
thought,
that there's
yeah.
a secondary ending. But I was kind of the opinion that they do kind of give you enough clues to sort of figure that out. And
I think my point
Sure.
against that is that the clues they give you are not necessarily forced down your throat in the same order
Sure.
as I played, because
Sure.
you can get those clues before doing that Richter fight, or you can get the Richter fight quite a bit earlier. Like I didn't even have either of the gold or silver rings, I think they were, and I didn't have that room open below the clock. I didn't have any of those clues. I don't even know if I had the spike breaker stuff yet at that point.
Oh,
So I missed
okay.
out on a lot of the big clues about what was going on, and so I fought Richter, and it felt like there wasn't really any hints in my playthrough anyways to say that there was more to it. It felt like
Sure.
that could have been the end.
Sure. And I agreed with one of the points that was sort of brought up. You had said, well, I've really not played Castlevania games before.
That too,
This is one
yeah.
of this is one of your first experiences. I mean, I think the the Castlevania character and the way the game's set up, that you're going to battle Dracula, the typical Castlevania gamer is going to say, this can't be the end. I mean, because I know I have to battle Dracula, and this game, the game would be too short. I mean, I would say someone knew what they were doing could probably get through the game in about maybe 3 hours or so that way. Just kind of going through to fight Richter. I know some people can do a lot quicker, but I'm talking about somebody just kind of normally going through it. I agree that one of the rings, I can't remember if it was the gold or the silver ring, the one you get for taking out the succubus and going through the nightmare sequence. That one's a little tough to find because it is in like sort of an outlet that is down a passage that you have to fall down, and you have to either have the bat or the mist to
Right, I
make it
remember
to
that.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a somewhat hidden in, if you didn't really see that as you were falling down and didn't remember to come back to it. That would make that tougher, and you wouldn't have that item. When you look at the items, the gold and the silver rings, they have inscriptions on them, and it's sort of a partial like code, right? And you have to look at the inscriptions on both of those rings and sort of put it together to know that you have to get to the clock room, and you have to be wearing both of those to open something up.
Yeah. Yeah, I did get those eventually, but it just wasn't until after I already fought Richter and got the bad ending.
Right. So, I definitely I definitely understand what your concern was with the game and not being able to do that. But I think that there's sort of and Shawn, you can probably attest to this too, and like with other games, there's sort of a fine line in sort of like hiding stuff, and you don't want to hide it so much that people feel like, gosh, I would have never known that. I can't believe I just missed literally half of this game. By not knowing that, or in the opposite way, you could hide it just enough where people will play it and will say, wow, that's really cool. Look at what I just figured out. That's really cool. And I think it sort of teeters on that. This game sort of teeters on that line, in a little in both directions.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a really perfect way to put it, and that's why I mentioned on the forum thread that I kind of am siding with both of you guys on this issue. Is that I do feel that you could miss it, especially a newcomer to the series.
Right.
You know, maybe doesn't know that you have to fight Dracula. That's the thing in a Castlevania game. And also, like, I knew about the inverted castle, so I don't, I can't go back and not know about it and tell you what it would be like that way. But I would have no idea how to have gotten to it. I had to use a guide to, to find both gold rings and then get the holy goggles. So
And that's even when you know that it exists, too.
Exactly.
Like imagine if you didn't know it existed, plus that.
But having said that, and I mentioned this on the forum thread, and maybe this is because I know Castlevania a little bit, is that when you beat Richter, there is that like nagging, like something wasn't right about that, like that wasn't satisfying, or that can't be right. Something's odd about that ending, like. You're going to beat Richter, who's like acting kind of weird, and then you just kind of look at the castle and, well, I'm done, and then just run away and I am the wind. Like it's like, I think I just said it would be unsatisfying. I would think. I don't know.
I agree, sort of, but I think, again, really not knowing the Castlevania series, I didn't know who Richter was exactly, and I didn't really know that he's always kind of the good guy. And in my mind, seeing that for the first time, it's like, okay, well, maybe this guy could have gone evil. I don't really know him.
Yeah.
I learned today that there's actually like a modified version of that ending where if you get the holy goggles and you can see the orb, but you still kill Richter instead. And I forget what exactly it is, but you get a different kind of cutscene with Maria at the end. It's not just Alucard saying, okay, I'm done, see ya. Maria is involved too, and I forget exactly what it is, but it's actually yet another version of an ending.
Oh, okay. I only had 3 endings listed to talk about, so that's
I believe
interesting.
There's 5 actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, because I know it would be those 2. So you get the 2 bad endings, and then there's, I think, 3 good endings.
Really?
Yeah, because you get the one good ending is if you have over a certain completion percentage, Maria goes with you, and under
that's 196%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So you get that, and she goes with you. If you're underneath, you just go, and she goes with Richter. And I forget.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure there's 5. I can't list them all off the top of my head, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I had the number 2 there with the less than 196% because she stayed with Richter.
Yeah. Same here. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I actually got the best ending with the over 196 because I'm an overachiever and have a little bit of a problem.
If I had known it was 196, I think I was like 180 something. I probably could have just pushed a little bit further and got it, but I didn't actually. I didn't even know about that, so I just wrapped it up, and I was fine with the ending I got. It made sense to me.
Good.
Yeah. And it's not that much difference of an ending, except that she goes with you or she stays behind. It's not. It doesn't change anything that much. So.
Yeah, the ending cutscene, even between the bad ending and then the good ending, it's not really hugely different. Like the major part with the castle evaporating into the sky is the same. It's just the dialogue at the end is different.
That's right. Yeah. Everything pretty much happens the same.
Yeah.
And that brings you to a point too. And one of the things, before I had sort of let that out on the forums about how you need to do something before you get to the other castle. I got a message from Shawn. Was like, well, I've already done it. I'm done with this game. and then of course he had to go back and play it, and
I was being facetious.
So, but that's cool that you can do that from save points and sort of check in, and you can check out all the endings if you want to. If you sort of know in advance what you need to do to get each ending, you can sort of go through the game and check them all out. So.
Yeah, I think it's almost kind of important to do that, really. I would encourage anybody who's playing this game to go experience the bad or the false ending, or however you want to put it, because it puts into context, parts of the story that you're going to unveil by doing the real ending. And
I think
you should experience it.
Yeah. So, speaking about the ending, let's talk about the Dracula ending a little bit. What did you guys think about that ending? Was it satisfying? Was it hokey? I mean, I think it kind of bordered a little of each.
Yeah, it's a little bit cheesy, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It was neat to see Dracula sort of apologizing at the very end and almost atoning for what he's done.
Is it odd that he's reading Bible scripture?
That's very odd, yeah. That was a bit
Matthew
much.
so and so, I think.
Yeah. That felt a little bit tacked on.
Yeah. It's sort of a bizarre ending, but yeah, I mean it's
But then really the rest of the game is very Christian overtones for the whole thing, so it's sort of
Yeah.
hard to complain.
it's like all you guys had to do was sit down and have a conversation about
Yeah.
what your mom said before she died. This would have never happened, you know. It's one of those, just tragic, it almost ends up being sort of a Shakespearean tragedy at the end, if you will, right? You've killed your father because of your Oedipal complex.
And
All
your
right,
mother
I'm
was killed.
reaching. But yeah, I mean, I thought the ending was fairly satisfying. It wasn't probably as long and drawn out as I would like for a game to be. I like a little more drawn out, fantastic endings. And it seemed a little short for as much time as I had put into the game, but I still felt satisfied. I think that the overall gameplay and just all the positives that this game brought were enough to make me really not care about the ending, if that makes sense.
The story is really not the focus of this game. This is really a gameplay kind of game,
Right.
to me anyways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts or anything on this game? Anything you'd like to talk about? Sort of wrap it up here.
Just had two last fairly short notes. One is just a funny thing about one of the enemies that I don't know if you guys noticed, but the bone arcs, which are the enemies who carried those kind of platforms for the skull, like Tyrannosaurus things on them. You kill the Tyrannosaurus, and then the bone arcs, they run around with this hilarious animation of their arms waving in the air, and I don't know if you guys got that, but I love that.
That was really funny.
Yeah, that was awesome.
They sort of just run off screen as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. But like so many of the enemies are menacing and out to kill you, and then these ones just run off screaming.
Yeah, I like the guys in the library that you kill, and they're I can't remember what they're called. I think it starts with a D or something. You kill them, and their head just rolls around on the floor, just kind of bounces around.
Yeah, the skull.
Yeah. I actually thought that a lot of these skeleton-based enemies had like a cute kind of look to them, not like you're saying, not menacing or scary. They almost look like cute is the only word I can think of. Like their faces look like little cartoony, almost like
a little bit, yeah.
like the French character from the Beetlejuice cartoon series. I don't know if you remember that, but just more funny than it is scary.
I would say that for like a lot of the game, like aesthetically, it was sort of like, other than a few things, like I think the Beelzebub boss was really creepy, like the body, hung up on the hooks. But for the majority of the game, I mean, this was definitely a game that I played around my kids. My wife, like 10 years ago, she's not a gamer, and she would be like, "Are you going to play that game tonight? I love watching you play it." And that says a lot about this game. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's sort of like silly, it's sort of tongue in cheek, and there's nothing like, I don't think there's anything like super menacing about anything in this game. Well, I mean, a few things, and I mentioned one, but a few things, but as a whole, not really. No. I mean, it's pretty tame.
And then the last thing I want to mention is something that was a bit of an ongoing debate on the topic. The voice acting is so bad. I don't know what you guys thought about it, but
it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some of the things, I think there was one line from Alucard near the end where he was talking about good and evil or something, and the whole time I was just thinking about that line from Spaceballs with Dark Helmet or whatever, and he's like, evil will always triumph because good is dumb. And I just was still expecting it to be something like that because of the way he was saying it.
Oh, man. Shawn, did you have anything about this game that you wanted to talk about or sort of to wrap it up?
No, we covered everything that was in my notes. Just want to reiterate again, glad to play this classic Konami PS1 game. I put in my notes, is it the ultimate cult classic amongst video games? I mean, we've been hitting a lot of them with Eco and Shadow and, the Suikodens. And I always mention Parasite Eve because I had such a good time with that game. But again, we're just nailing all these cult classics. It's awesome.
We're going to have a hard time picking a favorite at the end of the year.
Yeah, right.
It's gonna be tough, and that's something that you guys are alluding to. So I'll go ahead and fill our listeners in on that really quick. I think what we're sort of a plan for December, and we haven't kind of mentioned this yet, but I think we're gonna maybe kind of go back over a year and see what everyone's favorite games are throughout the year on the retro and modern side, to do a little bit of a retrospective, because of course we're playing shmups in December, and we'll talk about those for a little while, but they're shooty shoots.
For the most part, there's not much to say
blowing
about
stuff
them.
up, man. There's not a lot to talk about. So, so we'll do that. But guys, well, thanks for joining us, all you listeners out there, and Jamie, Shawn, enjoyed it as usual.
Yeah, it's good.
And just want to kind of fill in our listeners, let you know that. In November, I know we've sort of marked the calendar for the rest of the year, and what we'll be playing, but just a reminder that in November, on the retro side, we're going to be playing Super Metroid. Going to be a lot of fun. Jamie's going to be hosting that, and the rest of us will be struggling through it. From what I understand, is a very tough game, but I think it's a good segue.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll all struggle together.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good segue that we're going from a Castlevania Symphony of the Night Metroidvania game to a Metroid game. So,
I didn't realize just cool. how Metroid-like this Castlevania game was, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we could say we planned it that way, but we didn't, did we?
Yeah, we'll say that.
Yeah. So we had a lot of our community saying that they really wanted to play Super Metroid. So, as we do often, we are going to oblige next month. So, again, thanks everyone for listening.
Still in its misty crown, the moon she went down to the lake, and in the waves she drowned. And now to see your love set free, you will need the witch's cabin key. Find the lady of the light, gone mad with the night. That's how you reshape destiny.
Okay, over on the modern side for our October 2014 community playthrough, we played an Xbox 360 exclusive classic game, Alan Wake, from Remedy Entertainment. Now, returning to the show to discuss Alan Wake with us is our friend Steven, better known on the forums as Dsiposed Hero. Say hello, Steven.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Nice to have you back. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Floyd, who chose this game, who is a huge fan of this game and has played through it many times. He's going to tell us a little bit about Alan Wake.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I was really hyped for this game when it was announced, sort of back in 2009. Came out 2010. I'm really into that sort of like Twin Peaks and Lost type of narratives where there's no overt scares. It's more like something where your imagination can go run wild and kind of creep you out that way. So yeah, Alan Wake, released by Remedy Entertainment, is a really atmospheric and dark game, very much influenced by Twin Peaks, as I said before, and the Stephen King style of writing. It was released on a disc, but on an episodic format, and really, because Remedy wanted to go for that TV show type vibe, and I think it worked really well for the game. What did you guys think of the episodic nature of everything?
I liked it. It kind of helped segment the game into nice chunks. It gives you a nice recap at the end of at the beginning of each episode to give you a recap of the previous episodes.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that too, and I think the guys over at Remedy are really explicit when like they'll openly say that they're influenced by the TV style of storytelling. But yeah, no, I think it also works in the favor of the game because it makes it seem more pop culture-y, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. I actually liked it too because I like games that are cut up into chapters or levels or segments or episodes or whatever you want to call it. Just for that like organized part of my brain. It will a lot of times give you a good spot to save and quit and come back at a different time, and it's cool that it gives you those little recaps and last time on Alan Wake kind of thing. Like that's just really neat, a cool touch.
Because like with a lot of games like that aren't broken up like that, you can just sort of get the ball rolling and you don't want to stop. And I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I've always said that too much of a good thing is never good. But no, the way the chapters conclude and kind of bookend, and a lot of them end on cliffhangers is really really keeps you going, really keeps you sucked in.
Right.
What did you guys think of the atmosphere?
Yeah, the atmosphere is really, really great. It's just always dark and has a very spooky atmosphere. All kinds of just weird things going on. It really creates a nice atmosphere.
And I think it even taps into a little bit of just like I don't know how to put it. It's like a childhood fear of the unknown, fear of the dark, because that's sort of like a textbook phobia, is just being lost in a forest at night, and then you hear like the wind blowing through the trees and like just the world making the noises that it does, and everything kind of has you going on the edge of your seat. So I think they definitely scored well for atmosphere, and it kind of had that Twin Peaks type thing going on where there's something wrong with the town and the people who live there, and the people know, but they kind of brush it under the rug and they just say, oh yeah, we live here and weird stuff happens, and that's just how life is in Bright Falls. I think like as I was playing, I'm thinking, oh, this is right out of Twin Peaks. I mean, we have the lamp lady, who is a really overt reference to Twin Peaks' log lady, and all the coffee references.
Yeah, it's definitely got that Pacific Northwest kind of feel to the whole, the characters and the environments and the setting more than the environments themselves. But yeah, it's definitely a tribute to that kind of culture. Okay. All right, so Floyd, we're going to have just a brief overview of the story. Alan Wake, it's a story about a writer in the vein of Stephen King, like you said earlier, very much inspired by Stephen King. He's got a little bit of writer's block going on, hasn't put out a good novel for a number of years, so his wife has a little bit of an idea for him, and what is that? Right,
yeah, so Alice has brought her husband to the city of Bright Falls so that he can essentially unwind and write, but so he could also receive some help from renowned artist, psychologist, Dr. Hartman, who deals with basically the creative types who have lost their touch with reality and who find that their life is imitating their art. And I think that's a very big theme within this game, because as you play, you'll find these manuscript pages, and they do depict events that will be coming up very soon. So it kind of does have that issue of life imitating art, and in this case, in the really dark, evil sense. And that's really ambitious for a game to try. It's difficult to pull off in the sense that like your narrator is not 100% reliable, because their sanity is in question, right?
Right. So you're. Oh, go ahead, Stephen.
No, that wasn't me.
I'm just gonna sort of ruminate on something. Yeah, and so as Dr. Hartman says, Alan's wife has died, and he's created this fictional delusion in his mind that she's been kidnapped by, at first, this weird guy who wants the manuscript pages for reasons that aren't known to you and aren't known to Alan. And then Alan starts saying that Alice has been kidnapped by the Dark Presence, and he creates these characters who, like, they may or may not be real. Like, there's Cynthia Weaver, who is the wife of Thomas Zane, and Thomas Zane was a famous writer from the 70s who lived on Cauldron Lake.
Just to correct you, Cynthia Weaver wasn't the
Oh,
wife
that's
of
right.
Zane.
You're right.
That's the lamp
that's
lady. That was Barbara
Jagger, who was the wife. Yeah. See, they threw too many characters in there for me.
But I think the main idea here is that you're dealing with a character who you, as the player, are wondering what is real and what isn't, and you're dealing with a character who is struggling with his own sanity. And there are games that try to do this, but they tend to put the player in a confusing spot as a mechanism of questioning that sanity. And I'm thinking of like Eternal
Yeah, that's
Darkness,
what I was thinking
where
of too. Like, instead of using techniques that would break the fourth wall to play with your sanity, I guess, and the character's sanity, they just make everything really murky and ambiguous, right?
Exactly, and it's more questionable from a dramatic standpoint than it is like messing with the screen or blurring the screen or having weird sound effects. And there's some of that stuff, but really what you're wondering is Alan Wake losing it? That's basically what's going on, from the player to the player character relationship.
Right. Yeah. No,
that's what's going on.
That's a good point, because I mean, as Alan gets more desperate in his search to retrieve his wife, you kind of get more invested in him too.
Right. So unless either one of you guys wants to go deeper into the story, there's a lot to it, and we're having trouble just kind of explaining the story. But I think that we could probably transition into something else, maybe getting a little bit deeper into the cultural references that are present in the game. I know Stephen wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, man, tell us about that.
It's just some pretty overt references to Twin Peaks, I think, being the most obvious. The whole town itself is obviously a big reference to Twin Peaks. It's very reminiscent of Twin Peaks. You have characters that will remind you of characters from the show, like I think we mentioned before about the log lady and the lamp lady being sort of a reference. Coffee thermoses littered about town. I think even the diner itself was very reminiscent of the diner from Twin Peaks.
You even have the FBI agent Nightingale, who's he's got like his Twin Peaks parallel too. They have that brash FBI guy, not Agent Cooper, but there's some guy who's sent in to fix Cooper.
And then there's quite a few references to Max Payne as well. Seeing that this game was made, both games, Alan Wake and the Max Payne 1 and 2, were made by Remedy Entertainment. I think Alan's novels, the character Alex Casey from his previous novels is actually essentially Max Payne. If you read, I think it's at the beginning of episode 2, if you read the one of the manuscript pages that's in this flashback part of the episode where Alan's in his apartment, you can read a manuscript page from the novel that he's currently writing, and it's voiced by the voice actor of Max Payne, and it's essentially the plot of Max Payne is what you're reading. You also see Sam Lake makes an appearance.
Oh yeah, that was
on a talk show.
Kind of neat. Going back to Max Payne, I actually have not played any of the Max Paynes except for the for the Rockstar Max Payne 3. Now, obviously, when one studio has various titles under their belt, there's going to be comparisons. So, do you think Alan Wake stands up to Max Payne? Because I know Max Payne is a very much fan-beloved game.
Yeah, definitely. And first of all, Floyd, I would recommend that you go back and play Max Payne 1 and 2. Even just 2 if you don't want to invest a lot of time, because 2 is a really short game, but you'll get that kind of experience by playing them. But I look at it much in the way like when we discussed Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. They're games that complement each other, and I wouldn't say like, oh, Alan Wake is just like way better than Max Payne. Like it's a totally different thing, but they draw like, whereas Max Payne is like a crime noir, like hard-boiled, grizzled detective story, and Alan Wake is more of a supernatural, Twilight Zone-y, spooky horror story. A lot of the gameplay elements are the same. A lot of, again, that level of immersion that I was talking about, those are the same throughout, all the games. And just you'll be familiar with the controls, how the character moves, how the aiming and shooting kind of works. If you've played a Max Payne game, you'll be comfortable jumping into Alan Wake from that perspective. So yeah, they're comparable, but not in a way that like, like Remedy's outdone themselves with this. Like, Max, it leaves Max Payne in the dust. Forget about that. Like,
say one is better than the other, but you can see how they're related to each other. Yeah, and I think just sort of reading reviews of both games and looking at both games in action, like. You can see how Alan Wake has improved on some of the mechanic ideas from Max Payne. They sort of took what they learned from that game and applied it to Alan Wake.
Steven, did you have anything else to add about the cultural references? Some Stephen King stuff, probably?
Yeah, there's a lot of references to horror writers. There are a ton of references in Alan Wake, just to all sorts of different writers, TV shows, movies. There are some nods to The Shining in there.
Heavy metal music.
Yeah, for sure. But we couldn't list them all in this podcast. So I think the main things I thought were worth talking about were Twin Peaks and Max Payne.
Definitely.
Now you mentioned. As one of the Twin Peaks references, you mentioned the collectible thermoses, and that is something amongst other things like the manuscript pages that adds a little bit of a replay value to this game, because you can, there's a lot of collectibles in this game. So if I know you wanted to touch on that, so if you want to elaborate on the systems with the collectibles in the game.
There's throughout the game you can find these manuscript pages, which are supposed to be the novel that Alan was working on while he was, I guess, during this week-long period that he has no recollection of. They're just scattered all throughout the environment. They sort of serve as a premonition most of the time to things that are going to happen. For example, I know there's one you find, I believe in episode 1, that Wake says he makes it to his destination, and then he's all relieved, and then he hears the sound of a chainsaw. So you're just thinking, oh crap, there's gonna be a guy with a chainsaw coming after me later. And there's quite a few moments like that where you get these very ominous premonitions of what's going to happen.
Now, when you guys were playing the game, did you go in and listen to or read all of the manuscript pages, or does it? Because for me, it kind of wore me out after a while. I stopped looking at them because there's so many.
Yeah, there is a lot, and I have to confess that during my initial playthrough, I was, heavily invested in this game, and I
thought you were going to say intoxicated.
No. Well, yeah, when you get that moonshine at the Andersons, right? Yeah, no, I think during my first playthrough, because I was super hyped for this game, I tried to explore every nook and cranny that it offered, and I really went out of my way to look for these manuscript pages because they really fleshed out the world. But because this was, I think, my third time playing this game, and now I knew what was coming. I knew what was sort of like going on with the manuscript pages roughly. So even though I collected them, I didn't really open them to read them. So I guess I kind of hurt my own experience with the game, but at the same time, I don't feel bad.
Yeah, and I actually forgot, but like looking back into this game and just playing it briefly this morning, I forgot it is so talky, for lack of a better word, like, and it's well written. Again, like, my hat's off to Sam Lake for what he does in video games, but it's just freaking droning on and on and on with this, like, Alan Wake's narration, and it just, like, you really got to be in the mood for it, and to actually have to go into a menu and let him read more of it to you. You gotta be willing to deal with that.
It's really heavy in that sense, and like, it's not that that's bad. I mean, like, I think it actually works for the game because it kind of does pull from that film noir style with that, with that really gruff, in various ways gruff protagonist, and how they give those monologues that give you some insight into the character themselves or the world, but. Yeah, it does kind of wear out its welcome after a while, and you kind of just want to get on with the game.
Yeah, I actually, this is the first time I played the game since it first came out, so it's been probably a little over 4 years, and I didn't really remember much of anything, so I was really seeking out the manuscript pages during this playthrough, and I would listen to them and read them, and I didn't find them all, but I think I found a good number of them, but yeah, I always enjoyed listening to them.
That's cool. That's good to hear that kind of perspective, because like I said, I was a little bit like, I remember my first playthrough going, I'm not a completionist, or like I'm not into collectibles, but I remember like trying to get them and stopping and listening to them. But then like, when you start the game, even in the nightmare sequence, you already have a bunch, and I started listening to them, and I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this.
Definitely this, and like, maybe this does hurt its replay value. Like, if you're replaying it just for the collectibles and, for the achievements, that's fine. But if you're playing it to get the story, you're kind of just speedrunning this whole thing.
Yeah, you know what, and I'm kind of catching myself right now, because we're kind of beating up on a game that has like really good writing, really good voice acting, you know what I mean, a really good fiction. So it's weird to complain about like, oh, you got to collect these manuscripts. Like, it's a really cool thing in the game, and I don't know why I'm ragging on it so much.
Yeah, you know what, I have
like,
to
it's
agree
a really
with you,
cool
because
thing.
I don't dislike it either. And it's just one of those things that when you really want to understand the world and you want to understand what's going on inside Alan's head, it definitely helps, right? Like, these manuscript pages do give you some insight into what's going on.
Right, it's almost like the codex in a Mass Effect game,
right,
or
yeah.
something. How only it's even more involved with the actual plot. It's not just some encyclopedia entry. It's actually integral to the main story, and it's a question of how deep do you want to go into it, and how far down the rabbit hole as far as figuring out, Alan Wake's psyche, like I was talking about earlier. Do you want to go into
right,
by doing that?
And I think you're definitely hurting your experience by not listening to those manuscript monologues. Because a huge chunk of this game is just get from point A to point B in the middle of the night, and that's really like simple. So it's good that those manuscripts are there, because it gives you something to experience a world that Remedy has created, and it's a really interesting, just dark and like creepy world that they've created, and it's only in the manuscript pages.
Do you guys want to talk about the DLC episodes? I know not all three of us played all of them. Floyd, you played all of them?
I played through the first DLC episode. You know, like I thought it was a good continuation to the story, because the main game does end on that cliffhanger, and you know that, okay, Mr. Scratch, who is Alan's doppelganger, is out on the surface of the world, and Alan is kept within the dark place. And you're wondering, like, how's he going to get out? What's the conclusion to his story? And I think they kind of expand on that in the DLCs. More so in American Nightmare. I think the two main game DLCs, the Writer and the Signal, they're more about Thomas Zane and sort of giving him some backstory, which, like, at the same time gives more of Alan a story too.
Right. Now, you were saying in the forum that you didn't like American Nightmare,
no,
right?
I actually didn't, and it's not because American Nightmare is bad. It's actually quite good. I mean, like, it's a graphical improvement from the main game. It plays a lot more smoothly, but it has that, like, deja vu type thing going on where you do the same thing like 3 or 4 times to complete the scenario. Because what it is that Alan wakes up in what could quite possibly be the episode of Night Springs that he wrote, and he meets some characters along the way, finds some manuscript pages, and then kind of wakes up again and does it again. And that all culminates to a battle with Mr. Scratch, and he gets Alice back.
Now, I gotta say, I played American Nightmare, and I am with you on the reasons you don't like it, and I was at a point, I want to say halfway, or maybe even a little bit more than halfway through it, where I said, like, this is ridiculous going through this over and over again. But something happened, and I hit a turning point where I was, like, with it, and then by the time it concluded, it wrapped up, and, you know, it kind of wrapped up the whole story. I was really satisfied with it, and it made it worthwhile. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing this kind of structure for a game or for a DLC where you're doing the same thing over and over again. But in the end, it worked for me, I guess, in a way that it maybe didn't for you. So it's kind of interesting. I didn't play the Writer or the Signal. I only played American Nightmare. So, Steven, did you play any of the DLC, and any thoughts on it?
I played very little of the Signal, not really enough to say much about it, but yeah, I didn't really play much of the DLC episodes.
I think there was some criticism on the forum saying that there's a bit too much platforming incorporated into it.
Oh, wow, okay.
And yeah, like, just sort of trying to remember back to the DLC that I did play, like, it wasn't that bad. Like, it wasn't a deal breaker for me, because I quite liked the character of Thomas Zane, and it was really, really exciting to go and explore him a little bit more. But anyway, to each his own.
Cool. All right. Either one of you guys have any other topics or general feelings you want to hit on before we start wrapping it up?
I don't know if you guys, I kind of looked into some theories about what the story is. I don't know if you guys want to touch on any of those, if you guys may not be familiar with it.
Sure, man. Let's give it a try. See if something sparks a good conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, I read a few theories about the ending of the game, about what it means, because it's a little confusing. Kind of ends on a cliffhanger. One that I read was that throughout the entirety of the game, at least after the part where Alan blacks out, and wakes up again.
Wait,
I'm
I'm sorry,
actually playing a
dude. I don't mean to cut you off. Can you just explain what the ending is? I mean, I know it's going to be spoilery, but that's what this podcast is.
Oh, sure.
Just say what actually happens in the game. At the end of the game.
So at the end of the game, Alan returns to the cabin with the clicker, which is an object that Thomas Zane leaves for Alan. He finds the dark presence in the form of Barbara Jagger in the cabin, and he uses the clicker to destroy it. But Alice isn't returned. She's still in the dark place, or whatever it's called. I think what happens is Alan essentially sacrifices himself to the dark presence. He sort of rewinds time, I believe, by rewriting this part of the story that he originally wrote. He's back to the part where he first walks into the cabin and notices that Alice is missing, and he dives into the lake, and then later you see Alice crawl out of the lake. So Alan is still trapped in the cabin beneath the lake, and he essentially sacrificed
Well, if I remember
himself.
correctly, towards the end of the game, Alan realizes that Barbara is manipulating his writing, and he finds a way to sort of turn the tables and very subtly write the ending that he wants, which is essentially that Alice is saved, even if it's at his expense, right?
Right. He notes somewhere that, like, when Zane originally wrote his story, he made it this perfect happy ending, which didn't work, and there wasn't a balance there. So, and Wake realized this, so that's why he sacrifices himself to save Alice.
Mm-hmm. I think, like, even though that's kind of cloudy, and I'm sure many of our listeners are not going to quite make sense of that ending. This game is kind of hard to talk about. It's one that you really have to experience for yourself, and really, if you are going to talk about it, it's best if this game is fresh in your mind. But I think that does do enough justice of the conclusion to sort of jump into some theories.
Yeah, I was going to say let's hear what was the alternate theories that you were going to talk about, Steven.
So one theory that I've read about is the entire time that you're playing the game, from the point that Alan wakes up in the car crash, you're actually playing as Mr. Scratch, which is Alan's sort of avatar for the real world while he's trapped in the darkness. Mr. Scratch is acting out these events as Alan is writing them. While he's trapped in the cabin writing his manuscript.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, and I can see how that works. And I think there's even some evidence for that. Mr. Scratch has the bandage over his eye, and throughout the course of the game, Alan has that bandage over his eye, and once again, Mr. Scratch was created to create that balance. So, like, if there's an Alan in the dark place, there has to be an Alan in the real world.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, this game is so it's so weird, and I think that's why many people like it. It's like, it doesn't quite make sense, but you can put some pieces of evidence together and make it make sense for you, which, that's totally cool. I think just the fact that Remedy went so far as to create a whole world and mythology for this game, right around the time of release, or not too long after, there was a mini series called Bright Falls. And that was all about a journalist who comes to the town of Bright Falls looking for Alan Wake to conduct an interview with him. And did you guys check out that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
Well, I mean, it's it's all released on YouTube now, and I definitely recommend any fan of the game check that out, because it goes into the weird stuff that's going on in the town. Yeah, and it also deals with like the town's fascination with deers and stuff, and
now that's the one that you can actually watch in game. That's like live action, right?
No. That was the in game one was Night Springs, and that was basically like their little take on Twilight Zone, but wasn't there also one in game that was like an interview show with Alan himself as his live action actor, or am I just remembering it wrong? I can't remember. I mean, unless it was one of the TVs that I did miss, because I'm pretty sure I didn't get all of them, or one of the radio shows. But yeah, you could be right. Now also, there was, I'd say, about a year or 2 years after Alan Wake came out, this blog appeared online called This House of Dreams, and a lot of people were speculating that this is Sam Lake writing this blog, and it's all hinting at Alan Wake 2, and it's all about this woman who buys a cottage, and in this really, like, once again, it's in an idyllic rural spot, and she comes across this shoebox with photographs and poems, and I think you're led to believe that this is Thomas Zane's stuff. And yeah, if you guys didn't check this out, I really recommend you look into this too. It's called This House of Dreams. And it does a really good job of creating some hype for the Alan Wake 2 that we never got.
Right, because Remedy is working on Quantum Break, which looks great, and they're taking their mechanics to an even further level with doing some time traveling stuff, and it looks really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And that's gonna again be a Microsoft exclusive, so I don't have either one of the new consoles yet. I know Steven has both now, so he can play Quantum Break, but I wasn't planning on getting an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One, but I might be enticed by Quantum Break. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that was one of the big ones for me that influenced my decision to buy an Xbox One.
Yeah, definitely. The announcement of Quantum Break got me interested in the one. But it's funny that we're talking now about Remedy games that are influencing people to buy consoles, because it was actually Alan Wake that really made me want to buy a 360.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. There you go. So it's coming back around.
Coming full circle here.
There you go. All right, so I guess with that we can kind of wrap it up. It's been nice talking to you guys about this awesome game. It's a really cool cult classic, and like I said, we're all huge fans of Remedy here. Floyd, you got to go back and play the first two Max Paynes, and maybe someday we'll be back on this show talking about Quantum Break. So Steven, thank you for joining the show again. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And Floyd, as usual, thanks for choosing an excellent game and hosting a very good playthrough of Alan Wake.
Yeah, it was good to revisit this and see if it held up to my expectations and my memories of it. And yeah, as always, it's great talking with you guys.
Cool. So join us again next month for the November Modern playthrough. We're going to play System Shock 2 on the PC. Hope to see you then. Well, that's the show, folks. Thank you for listening, and a very special thank you to everyone who joined the playthroughs, and to our special guest, Dsiposed Hero, for returning to the show. Remember to visit RFGeneration.com to participate in our playthroughs, discuss the games, or leave feedback on this podcast. Join us next month in our playthroughs for November 2014, in which I will be hosting System Shock 2 for the PC, and Jamie will be hosting Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the RF Generation Community Playthrough Wrap-Up.